Hello everyone, I am Demented Kirby, and welcome to my channel, the Commander Tavern. The Commander Tavern is a channel dedicated to my favorite Magic the Gathering format. The Brewery is a series on this channel showcasing my spicy brews and other deck techs. On this episode of the Brewery, I will be discussing my take on a commander from Unsanctioned, Pippa, Duchess of Dice. If you like this deck or any of the cards I'll be mentioning throughout the video, please consider using my TCG Player affiliate link when purchasing those cards. You can find that link down in the description. It'll really help out the channel. Other ways you can help support the channel is with my Patreon. Patrons get early access to scheduled videos on YouTube, and higher tier patrons get access to the VIP section of my Discord server as well. You can find a link to that down in the description too. In fact, patrons got a chance to see this video earlier. Alright, let's get back to the episode. Pippa is a 2/2 human noble for 2 generic and 1 green. However, since she has a blue activated ability, she has a green-blue color identity. Her first activated ability creates dice tokens. What I like about this ability is that the power and toughness of the die token is equal to the result of the die. So if you roll a 4, you get a green 4/4 creature token. However, roll a 1 and you get a 1/1. Even then, that isn't bad. For example, Jade Mage will always produce a 1/1 for 3 mana. But with Pippa, you have to be very unlucky for that to happen. In fact, you have a 67% chance of getting a creature with power and toughness 3 or greater, which is great value for the investment in mana. Her second ability allows you to reroll any die. If you're building around a Dice Matters theme or die rolling mechanic, then this ability is great. Even if you're just playing plain chase and rolling that planner die will cost more than 3, just use Pippa to try and change the result of any flop. That being said, this deck tech will focus on maximizing her first ability, which is creating big tokens. This deck wants to win via one or two ways, or possibly a mixture of both, since parts of the machines do overlap and synergize. We're either stomping, going wide with big creatures, or we win by combo. Since these pieces work together, first let's see how we can combo off, since this is also a way to generate a substantial amount of creatures to go wide with. Biomancer's Familiar helps in reducing Pippa's activation cost to just its colored mana. This is crucial in being able to go infinite with Pippa, which we'll see soon enough, but also helpful in saving us 2 mana each activation. Intruder Alarm and Thorn by Staff are 2 pieces that also help us go infinite with Pippa. Not only that, but they're useful on their own. With Intruder Alarm, Pippa gets untapped whenever she creates a die token. If you paid her activation with mana generated from mana dorks, they untap too. Thus, you can generate infinite die tokens as well as potentially infinite mana, infinite die rolls, infinite enter the battlefield triggers, etc. But we'll see some combos for that later on. Thorn by Staff is also another way to untap Pippa, but it's dependent on a creature dying in order to do so. So if we sacrifice the token just created, she untaps. Phyrexian Altar, Ashnod's Altar, and Blasting Station help with just that. The altars help with providing mana via a free sacrifice outlet. This is great since we can sacrifice the die tokens for mana and have Pippa untap afterwards. However, with Blasting Station we can weaponize the token creation, potentially wiping the board. Let's see some potential setups for these combos I just mentioned. Let's start with a simple example like Biomancer's Familiar, Intruder Alarm, a Mana Dork, the deck has a few, and Pippa. The Familiar makes Pippa's ability only cost green, which can be paid for by the Mana Dork. You roll a die and create a token. The token entering the battlefield triggers Intruder Alarm, untapping Pippa and the Mana Dork. You can now do this all over again with a net gain of 1 creature. Doing this at the end of the turn before yours will provide you with infinite attackers that you can use during your next combat step. So that's one way of winning via infinity. The other way is if we can't swing in for the kill. We can just use Blasting Station with infinite tokens. If we're able to create a net gain in tokens with each iteration, we just sacrifice one of them to Blasting Station. When we create a new one, it just untaps Blasting Station and we can repeat this and ping everyone until they die. The deck runs Llanowar Elves, Fyndhorn Elves, and Elvish Mystic, as well as the previously shown Birds of Paradise, so you can use any of these in that previous example. Either way, the Mana Dorks are useful on their own to accelerate the deck. Helping to go infinite is just a bonus. Even then, Cryptolith Rite and Earthcraft are included in order to make any creature a Mana Dork, including Biomancer's Familiar, in order to not just provide redundancy for the combo, but also accelerate the deck. Here's the setup if we want to go infinite using Thorn by Staff. Apart from that, we need Biomancer's Familiar, Phyrexian Altar, and Pippa. With the staff equipped to Pippa, create a token. Then sacrifice the token to Phyrexian Altar in order to get green mana. This triggers the staff untapping Pippa. You can then use that mana to pay for Pippa's ability to create another die token. Rinse and repeat. This particular loop doesn't provide a net gain in creature tokens like the previous example. However, it is a way to provide infinite triggers for creatures dying, creatures entering the battlefield, and die rolls. And why do I keep mentioning die rolls? As luck would have it is included in this deck. Pippa is the only way to roll dice in this deck, but that's fine because she's the commander. Also, the enchantment only costs 1 green mana to cast and has hexproof. Roll a d6 enough times and you're bound to get 100 luck counters on it. This is a helpful way to win against decks that are resilient against combo and stompy strategies. This also pairs nicely with Quark's other thumb. Not only does the thumb work well in the deck because it enhances Pippa while only costing 2 generic mana to cast, but being able to roll 2 dice and choose the highest of the 2 is a great way to ensure that you get the largest die token possible. Additionally, rolling 2 dice works with as luck would have it, since it counts all dice that are re-rolled or rolled multiple times. Returning to the combo, even though this Thorn by Staff combo on its own provides no net gain in creature tokens, it provides infinite enter the battlefield triggers for cards like Cream of the Crop, Path of Discovery, and Season of Growth. Every time a creature enters the battlefield, we're able to improve the quality of the top card of our library. So if we need to dig through the deck for pieces, we're able to. Granted, at this point we're already at infinity, but these enchantments on their own still work well with the deck because of the tokens being created and the creatures being cast. But as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of pieces that can work together in the deck because they synergize well with what the deck wants. Another such card is Champion of Lambhold. Even if we can't acquire a large enough army to take out the table, an infinitely large Champion of Lambhold is enough to take out an opponent, or potentially the entire table, since all of our creatures are essentially unblockable. This is where the overlap of Stompy with combo can be observed in the deck. In order to improve Pippa's die token output, the deck runs Doubling Season, Parallel Lives, and Primal Vigor. With any of these in the previous examples, we create those creature tokens exponentially faster. Additionally, it allows us to gain net creature tokens even faster. Not only that, but in the Thorn by Staff example, we're able to create a net gain in creature tokens just like the first example. Primal Vigor is also good apart from doubling our tokens since it also doubles our +1/+1 counters. Just be careful since it has the potential of also helping out opponents. Doubling Season also helps in doubling any counters, so it also makes, as luck would have it, get to 100 twice as fast. It can also help our planeswalkers enter the battlefield with twice their starting loyalty. The deck's running Tezzeret the Seeker as a way to help assemble our combos faster since most of the parts in the engines are artifacts. Additionally, Tezzeret also untaps 2 artifacts, so he's great at untapping the mana rocks in the deck. Being able to have Tezzeret enter with twice as many loyalty counters is just a bonus since on his own he's already able to tinker in any of the artifact type combo pieces we need. Earlier I mentioned Beatdown, and this being a green-blue deck is no exception. Master Biomancer helps each creature enter the battlefield with +1/+1 counters, which makes them even beefier for swinging into an opponent's face. Remember that Doubling Season and Primal Vigor will double the amount of these counters being added. Nalia, God of the Hunt, is another way of pumping our creatures, albeit one at a time. However, she does give trample to all of our creatures and she's indestructible, so she does help us go wide. Thanks to Biomancer's Familiar, her activated ability only costs 2 mana when she's a creature. Her bow also gives our horde a global boon by giving our attacking creatures death touch, so whatever doesn't go through, we'll at least take down whatever blocked it down with it. The bow is also a Swiss Army knife in our toolbox since it can be used to give a creature +1/+1, shock a flyer, gain us 3 life, or bottom deck 4 cards from our graveyard. Remember the 3 enchantments from earlier, Cream of the Crop, Path of Discovery, and Season of Growth? We can use that infinite engine along with Bow of Nylea to recover 4 cards from our graveyard and sort through our library until we top deck them. Craterhoof Behemoth is another boon for going wide since it pumps our creatures +X+X for each creature we control, and it gives trample to all of them. With enough creatures and or tokens on the battlefield, this can very much win the game out of nowhere, especially with all the tokens we're creating. Speaking of which, Avenger of Zendikar is also in the deck. Although it combos with Craterhoof Behemoth, Tooth and Nail is not included in this deck. That being said, the tokens it creates can be used as fodder for many of the engines in the deck as well as potential blockers and attackers. With token doublers out, the amount of plant tokens created can be quite significant. That and the Avenger and the Behemoth are huge beaters themselves. Speaking of beaters, Hydroid Krasis and Prime Speaker Zagana can become quite large depending on your board state. However, their main inclusion isn't just as huge beaters. Granted, that helps with eliminating players, but they're also used to draw cards, something the deck does remarkably well too. Gadwick the Wizened is a similar mana sink to Hydroid Krasis, although he's only ever 3/3. That being said, he is a Blue Sun Zenith on the body, so he's able to refill our hand so we never run out of steam. He also has a neat triggered ability that we can take advantage of, but it's not the main reason for running him. Speaking of Blue Sun Zenith, the deck is running it along with other instant speed draw X spells like Stroke of Genius and Pull from Tomorrow. Being instant speed draw X spells is great to be able to use at the end of an opponent's turn. We're pretty much trying to keep our mana open in order to activate Pippa when it's the most ideal time to do so, or to keep our mana free for responses, which we'll see later on. Brain Geyser, Mind Spring, and Finale of Revelation are sorcery speed draw X spells, but they still get the job done. Brain Geyser can also be used to deck an opponent if you're already generating infinite mana, so keep that in mind too. You can also do that with Stroke of Genius and Blue Sun Zenith as well. Finale of Revelation is great because if you sink enough mana into it, you can shuffle your graveyard back into your library before drawing your cards. You also untap up to 5 lands, and then you have no maximum hand size for the rest of the game. That's quite the bonus. Now, even if these effects are on sorceries, fear not because the deck runs Vidalcan Orrery and Leyline of Anticipation. Since we want to keep our mana open until the end of our opponent's turn, we want to make the most of it. So being able to cast anything outside of our turn is great since we can only be stopped by instant speed effects, especially with Seedwar Muse in the deck. Being able to untap our permanents each untapped phase means that we can play at the end of each of our opponent's turns as if it were our main phase. Keep in mind that this will also untap Pippa in order to use her ability each turn. Setting up such a board state will undoubtedly make you the center of attention, so it's important to have all those previously mentioned draw X spells to never run out of steam. Speaking of which, these spells aren't the only ways to draw cards either. Biting of Thassa helps convert smacking opponents into card draw. Although our creatures aren't always unblockable or have trample, swinging in with enough creatures allows enough to get through to deal damage as well as draws cards. Not only that, but you can also use it to force an opponent to attack. If your creatures are larger, then you can clear their board of blockers for your next combat step. Or, if they don't swing your way, they're still attacking another opponent. And thanks to Reliquary Tower and Thought Vessel, you don't have to discard away all the cards you're drawing when you reach your cleanup step. These can still tap down for mana in case their purpose has been rendered useless thanks to Finale of Revelation's bonus effect. Now, the reason we don't want to run out of steam is because we want to protect our engines. And not just protect our engines, but prevent opponents from interrupting us if we're going to go to infinity. We're basically keeping our mana open for our slew of counterspells: Force of Will, Force of Negation, Pact of Negation, Swan Song, Counterspell, Negate, and Mana Drain. These counterspells are either incredibly cheap or free because they're basically used to prevent opponents from stopping our combo. Force of Negation can't be cast for free during our turn, but if we're able to, we can play during opponents' turns. So if we're going to go off outside of our turn, it's incredibly helpful. Either way, it's free to cast during an opponent's turn to prevent them from comboing off. We can also get rid of things if they do manage to enter the battlefield, particularly commanders. Imprisoned in the Moon and Song of the Dryads do an excellent job of making it incredibly difficult to use a commander. They're turned into a land without any abilities apart from tapping for mana, so they're great commander removal. You can also get rid of commanders with Foul Play and Oko Thief of Crowns. The aura makes the commander die to so much as a whisper, but at least it gets rid of indestructible commanders. Oko turns commanders into something a bit stronger. Since the effect is permanent though, it's harder to get rid of, so Oko is definitely a good removal piece in the deck. Beast Within is another cheap and excellent removal piece. Instant speed removal for anything in play is definitely clutch at the right time. And last but not least, you guessed it, the best removal of all, an Overloaded Cyclonic Rift gets rid of anything and everything. The deck is able to produce mana fairly quickly, so we're able to overload it with relative ease. Playing on another player's turns is also helpful in always having mana open. Some of the ways to generate mana in the deck have already been covered, at least the mana dorks, but it's important to diversify. So the deck has Mana Rocks and land-based ramp as well. The deck's running Soul Ring, Mana Crypt, and Mana Vault in order to make it easier to cast and activate Pippa, as well as the rest of the spells in the deck. These can also be tutored with Tesseract with relative ease, as well as being untapped by him afterwards. Farseek, Nature's Lure, and 3 Visits are a given. I know I mentioned these 3 spells in most of my videos with the green color identity, but they're great at fixing mana since they can ramp for dual-type lands. Cultivate and Kodama's Reach are also included since the deck only runs 2 colors, so each of these spells can seek out a basic forest and a basic island, so they technically help with getting both colors too. Gaia's Cradle is included in my build because of all the creatures in the deck plus all the ones that can be produced. You don't need to run it in your own build for it to run. If you do have one, then it's great here. As for the rest of the lands, the deck's running all 8 fetch lands, Tropical Island, Breeding Pool, Hinterland Harbor, Waterlogged Grove, Command Tower, Mana Confluence, City of Brass, Ancient Tomb, Temple of the False God, and 9 of each basic land. As with Gaia's Cradle, you don't need to add Tropical Island or Mana Crypt to make the deck work. That being said, if you have them, go for it. This brew is just an idea of how to build around Pippa, Duchess of Dice. The deck can win by going wide or assembling a combo, but it can be piloted with all these overlapping pieces that synergize together, making it very fun to pilot. Scoring a win with As Luck Would Have It is also pretty cool if you manage to pull it off. If you're interested in the deck list of this spicy brew of mine, you can find a link to it down in the description. I would like to thank all my patrons for supporting me, and a quick shout out to all my higher tier patrons, the brewers, for their patronage. I'd also like to thank anyone using my TCG Player affiliate link. That also helps out the channel. And to everyone, thanks for watching this episode of The Brewery on the Commander Tavern. I am Demented Kirby, and happy brewing.